a lot of races might focus on like one aspect of equality or equity out there. And I've unfortunately like given myself such a headache trying to do a lot of places at one time because it requires education and amplifying other voices. It's not quick work. I think that people don't always realize how much personal work and then work within the community it takes in order to execute these things.
So you've been doing this for a while. You've sent a bunch of athletes to have potentially the best day of their life or the worst day of their life. And
some could argue it was the worst day.
It's both. Yeah, it could be both in the same day or 2 days since it's a 30-hour cutoff. And the way that you're doing it is by highlighting people who aren't, the traditional person who's running this race. I've had a lot of conversations on this podcast about this topic, and marketing 101 is right, like using imagery and stories of people to make people feel like they belong. So you show up on a website and you want to see yourself in the product, or you want to see yourself in the ability to benefit from the product. So if you show up on a website and it's a bunch of white guys and you are not that, you might not say this is for me. And so what I found to be really awesome in the running community lately is that there is a very strong effort to have the, are there people like me on those starting lines? I don't say me because visually I appear to be part of the majority, although Jews are definitely not in the majority.
Well, and I've seen your social media, like your allyship is strong, which I appreciate.
And it's the kind of thing that my sister's gay, her partner's black, and so like I have a family connection and friends who are gay, and friends who are not white, and friends who, all these different things that make people unique. I'm chatting this afternoon with Riley Brady about their experience training for Western States and showing up for their community. And I do it because I have a platform, and I feel there's a responsibility for people who have a platform to. It doesn't need to be all DEI all the time. It's just like my perspective on it is like I want to platform people who enable other people to see themselves in the messaging and the storytelling and whatnot. So talk to me more about how you're doing it, what guidance you might have for people who are looking to be allies or looking to continue to build people up who are doing the right thing and whatnot.
Yes, I feel when I started doing a lot of these items, I thought more race directors might look to it and want to adopt similar things. And I feel like it is a slow burn on that. I think there's some concern about alienating part of the base that has historically, especially in the longest ultras, 85% been white men, a strong portion of that being white cis hetero men. So I appreciate that I've been able to do it and show that we're not only surviving, but we're actually thriving, especially in a very red conservative area like Texas.
That's the interesting part, right? Because I think the way to do it is, and this is just my 2 cents, like nobody should be alienated. Like if you are a white male who's straight, like you belong too in trail running, right? Like we're not, at least in my efforts, like I'm not attempting to exclude everyone. It's just like, let's just let everybody be a part of this and feel seen. I think that's actually like a piece that a lot of people are doing wrong, which is like alienating the original group and making it, okay, really, like it's like horseshoe theory. Like as you go further in both directions, like the two sides are similar. Like it's all balance, right? Like we all belong. It's not one group matters more than another, but certain groups need more support, right?
Yes. And this is where we say all are welcome, but these groups are actively invited because they've historically been more left out or felt unsafe. And I think that the one interesting thing too is that, a lot of races might focus on like one aspect of equality or equity out there. And I've unfortunately like given myself such a headache trying to do a lot of places at one time because it requires education and amplifying other voices. It's not quick work. I think that people don't always realize how much personal work and then work within the community it takes in order to execute these things. For example, we're very happy to have a great partnership with the Dallas Muslim Running Club, but I had to do a lot of education on my own because they don't owe me to be educated on their community, but also then to come back and say, hey, am I understanding all of this right? Like, what can we do in terms of halal food? Just as what can we do in terms of kosher foods? What can we do for those with celiac disease? Like, when you approach everything, it's exhausting, but it's worth it because each of those communities deserves to feel felt. So for an example, how prayer is handled within the Muslim community, especially among those that are running ultras. Some will pause for their moments of prayer, which is 5 times a day. Some will almost, it's like you can accumulate them, and then you're still able later to devote yourself to that. But so we started offering at Dinosaur Valley Endurance Run, our big 100 miler there in the North Texas area, a quiet tent. And it covers multiple needs, and all those needs need to understand and be able to be respectful of each other. But it can be a place for prayer, a place for meditation. It's a tent set way back, away from the audio, away from the race environment, fully screened in. But it's also a place to breastfeed, to breast pump. It's a place for autistic spectrum or neurodivergent people who are overstimulated to be able to go and have a moment to get themselves back to center. And I think the fact that we phrase that tent in that regard is really important. We're out there doing the things that a lot are doing of trying to reach out to the BIPOC community, make sure that they feel safe, understanding the history of, Black people not wanting to camp or hike is rooted in a feeling of safety that wasn't there. And even an understanding that the national parks weren't really made accessible to that community for a very long time. I mean, Martin Luther King, this happened in Canada, but he was actually denied access to a park because of his race. I think a lot of people don't understand that history of those are our generation's parents who then inform your own, personal trauma and triggers. And so I think learning about that's really important. So we're also working to constantly make sure that we bring more women into the sport, because even at the longest distances, Western states at this point is 15 to 20% women. I've won age groups because I was the only woman that showed up. That was my age. So I feel like the representation matters that you were mentioning is that a lot of the websites, they don't show a lot of women. The social media doesn't show a lot. Our Dinosaur Valley Endurance Run is known for having a high percentage of women. I think it's 38% of our ultra population is women. And part of it, I actually attribute to a social media thing we've been doing. I've seen more races picking up on this. I appreciate it because representation does matter. But we do shout outs in our social media where we really go and try to get a couple tidbits about a person, have the picture, and then showcase them. And our athletes have said that when they showed up to the start line, even if they weren't local, people weirdly felt familiar. And what a special thing that is to feel, especially when we had 18% of our athletes at Dino Valley 100 last year were from out of state. But to come in and have this camaraderie automatically, I think that immediately adds to that sense of belonging, that sense of feeling seen. And telling those stories that go beyond the color of your skin or your gender or your genitals is those shared experiences and background that people have, that maybe it inspires them, because I know I get messages that, oh, well, I signed up because I saw that someone that reminded me of me signed up. So you're hitting the nail on the head. Now it's just showing that we're doing well doing it, is that 2.5 years ago, I did a Facebook Live where I declared I want to make Dinosaur Valley 100 a Western States qualifier. We didn't have one within 3.5 hours of us. Texas had 3 or 4, but we're one of the biggest states for ultra running. And beyond Arkansas Traveler, I think you had to go all the way to Run Rabbit Run in Steamboat Springs, or you had to go to No Business in Kentucky. It was an 800-mile radius, had only 4 or 5 qualifiers. If you live in Oregon, Washington, or California, and you like qualifying for Western states, This is a moment to remember how lucky you are for the opportunities. So I put that out there and I was so ready for crickets, and the community instead was like, yes, let's do this. It took us 2 years to get there, but now not only we actually qualified first as a 100K qualifier, but we're now also a 100-mile qualifier. But also because of the nature of bringing people into the sport and having more average runners. I mean, my company's called The Active Joe because it's really centered around the average Joe, which most of us are. Most of us are not elites. We're not getting paid. We're not professionals doing this. You know, we're balancing kids and weekends and spouses and partners and family and friends. So the 100-mile, you qualify if you finish in 35 hours. And the 100K is in 22 hours. And that's really based off of the finish times of who is actually out there. So we created a big race with tons of finishers of average athletes. And now that's rewarded at the Western States level, but it came through bringing more people into the sport at that level of ultra who feel safe, who feel seen, who feel welcome. And I really hope that there's someone out there that goes, oh, I'm going to change what I do. Megan DeHaan up at Crazy Mountain 100. I'm sure you know that race. Like it's become really famous in the last few years up in Montana. She's doing amazing things with sustainability and the environment. But we did a webinar together as women in race directing, and I talked about how we allow a pacer the entire race if you're 60 or older in the 100K or the 100-mile. And we actually offer for all of our races a pacer at all distances if you're 70 or older, because sometimes you just need that safety runner in terms of losing your night vision, your balance, those sorts of things. And Megan afterwards was like, hey, can I go use that 60 and over? Yes, please. Like, and so she's instituted that for Crazy Mountain 100 about a year and a half ago.
That's awesome.